So go ahead and tweet your questions to myself at ChanManV, or you can just save your questions, I guess, for Twitch chat, and we'll take a few from there at the end. Okay, so moving on, I have an evolved deck, a Shaman evolved deck that I've been playing with the last day or two, and this deck is so fun. You know, it was fun like the first week that Evolve came out and I was playing it, but I'd forgotten how fun this deck is. And now I saw Choggy playing the Pantry Spider on the first day. I remember that, and but now getting a chance to finally do it and play Barnes too with Evolve, it's pretty awesome. And when you land the Evolves, it is disgustingly good. Just makes your day whenever you get a chance to land it.
But ChanMan, what happens if you don't land the Evolves?
It's not bad too. It's a freaking Shaman. It's
then
like
you have Pantry Spider in your deck.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, man. You got
2/1/4 for the Flame Tongue with it. Yeah,
I mean, that's why I only have one Pantry Spider. I don't got two Pantry Spiders. I only have one. I only have one.
Okay, so I like this list. I think it needs a few revisions.
Of course it needs revision. This is for more fun.
Okay, well, did you just like throw this together right now? Okay,
pretty much, yeah.
One thing, Evolve Sea Giant is broken in Evolve decks because you're trying to flood the board anyway.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about Sea Giant. Yeah,
and if you evolve a Sea Giant, it just like
stays.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right?
So you don't have to worry about it. Yeah,
yeah.
It just comes back as a Sea Giant, and like it's just so good. Bloodlust is also better than Doomhammer as a win condition because usually you don't want to spend 5 mana developing a Doomhammer because that's 5 mana that could be spent on playing Pantry Spider, a 1-drop, and Evolve, or something along those lines. Balefit Tidehunter is so good in the deck. Finally, Balefit
That's interesting.
Dude, but aren't all those? The 2/1 is a 2-drop, obviously, but the token's a 1/1, right? It's a 1 mana card, right?
It's 1 mana, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it scares me every time I have to evolve a 1 mana. Man.
You know, like
you can't be afraid of Doomsayers. It never shied anybody away from playing Powder.
Actually, to your point, I haven't hit a Doomsayer in like the last two days of playing this deck. So
yeah, you know what I'd cut from this list though? I really I'm not sure if the Trogs are ever better than Argent's Choir in this deck.
I think it is. I mean, well, I play Doomhammer in this, so if you cut Doomhammer, then maybe.
I like Argent Squires better. I'm looking at my list basically.
I'd play one Moat Lurker at the top end, even, dude. Like I'd consider one Moat Lurker at the very top end.
Yeah, Brand and Master. Oh my god, that would
be
pretty sweet.
If you're gonna play Brand, then you could also play Arcanosmith.
Yep.
Oh man, that could be.
And if you're gonna play Brand, you could also play Gormok.
And what about the 4-mana 7/7s? Like you cut those out. You just play like
4-mana 7/7. What?
Yeah,
just evolve your Pantry Spiders, and you get one without the Overload.
I don't, man. Okay. I mean, there's definitely counters. There's counter synergy with the Flame Wreaths for sure.
They're both they're both 3-drops. Arcanosmith is like a 3-drop and a 2-drop.
Yep, that's exactly. No, Arcanosmith is a 4-drop.
It's a 4-drop.
So 4 and a 2.
And a 0/5.
And a 2.
4 and a 2.
Yeah.
So it's like you get a 5 and a 3.
Yeah.
Like
just crazy good.
When you go off on this deck, and Balefit Tidehunter is actually pretty good because you guarantee targets for like Flame Tongue and things like that. You can play it on turn 2. There's so many times where I would coin out Pantry Spider, and then even if they kill one of your spiders, next turn you can play Balefit Evolve, and you get a 4-drop from your second spider, a 3-drop from your Balefin, and a 2-drop from the 1/1.
Okay.
And that's just 3 cards. It's such a big tempo swing.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Of course it can backfire, but those are the types of things that you can really do.
I mean, I'd even put in Bloodlust, right?
Yeah, that's what you talked about instead of the Doomhammer. Yeah, I could see
Abusive
that.
Sergeant also ends up being great when you have lots of little tokens like that, and having more 1-drops allows you to fit in those plus evolves really quickly.
Yeah.
So there's so much work that you can do.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different things. I mean, this one was still like working with the whole overload and just that kind of pressure with just the Trogs and the Golems. But you're right. I mean, I think that'd be investing even more into the just that type of archetype for Evolve. For those of you again listening at home, it's a lot of different things that we've been talking about. At the end though, the consistent part is definitely 2 things from below at the end. 2 Nerubian Prophets, because there's just so much great synergy with Master of Evolution and Evolve. And then Fire Elementals too. Barnes is amazing with it.
See, Fire Ellies are interesting, right? I'm not even sure.
I like Fire Ellies right now.
In this deck, I'm not sure, man.
You need some gas. I think Fire Elemental, I did put in my Evolve deck, which is top notch.
Top notch.
Okay,
Listen to
dude,
this
he's
guy.
got like
Listen
a
to
top
this
notch
guy.
list.
He's proud, baby.
It's refined.
Is it
It's
spreading
real,
madness refined, or what level? What level of refinement?
It's beyond Yogg Zoo by a lot. And I settled on one fire elemental.
Yeah.
One fire elemental. Okay.
At most,
one
I
of
think.
those.
I'd probably play
It's
Lurker
performed
instead,
well.
right?
Yeah.
But it's like you can tweak this type of list a lot.
Yeah.
I
Now,
love.
what do you think of Maelstrom Portal? Like, I feel like I'm forcing myself to play it all the time, and it's like,
well, you don't play Blood Mage, so it's already worse than your list.
Yeah. So I just kind of force myself to play just to kind of get a better feel for it.
All right, ChanManV, would be the perfect time to introduce the other deck.
Okay, which one?
The Totems.
Where? I don't see it. Did you send it to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, send it to me again. I didn't see it. You didn't send it to me.
It's in the long list of ones.
It's in the long list. I mean, I've got my own list I can give if you.
A little bit down, it's called Totems.
Oh, there's multiple. I didn't realize there were multiple ones in this. My bad. Okay, let me get this up here. Give me 1 second, guys.
All right, prepare.
So is this your evolved deck, or is it a different one?
No. Okay. This is a deck that. Okay.
Oh man, I'm bracing myself here.
This one is real. I think Noxious watched me play against someone who was playing this deck. This deck is legit.
All right, it's legit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wicked Witch Doctor was like the most underrated card in the set of all the reviews that I saw people. By a long shot, bro. It was unbelievable. Like I've tried that card out when it came out, and I was so impressed with the performance of this thing.
Wow. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I didn't really love that card. So we got the Totemites, baby. Yes.
There are a numerous amount of players right now between like rank 1 and 150 legend playing this deck on both on NA and E right now. If this deck gets refined, and this was just one that I threw together with inspiration from Loyan, who built a deck similar to this the other day. Also inspiration from Frodan, who played it on stream yesterday. I was driving home from King of the Hill, listening to him play it on just listening to audio only on his stream, and it's like Frodan while streaming had like a 75% win rate. Loyan had like over an 80% win rate, and these are across like 60 plus games for both of these guys. I played against a couple players playing it today, and it just feels so strong. The Wicked Witch Doctor works the same as like Violet Teacher. So if you play Wicked Witch Doctor Totemic Might, you spawn the totem and then it buffs. You play so many totems already. Your totems become so sticky, especially if you manage to get multiple healing totems.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
You spawn. What you do in this deck is you don't just barf out your cards. You don't just like play Wicked Witch Doctor on 4.
Yeah.
You have these swing turns where you'll clear the board with Lightning Storm. You'll like play Wicked Witch Doctor, clear the board with Lightning Storm, develop a totem, Primal Fusion, and just you'll swing the board. You have these big swing turns that allow you come back into games that you'd otherwise lose, and then you never lose the board once you take it because your totems are so strong. Like having 5 health, having 4 health totems, 6 health totems is absurd.
Yeah, the removal right now isn't like large enough to. Well, I mean, outside of maybe
just
priest, I mean, there's not a lot of ways to remove, like, I guess 4 health plus totems on the board, and that's what you'd be seeing. Just for folks, again, just going to spell this out really quick, because this is actually a very unique deck. We've got 2 Totemic Mites, a Squire, Lightning Bolt, Primal Fusions, Rockbiter Weapon, Flame Tongues, Maelstrom Portal, Totem Golem, Hex, Lightning Storm, Mana Tide Totem, Tuskar, Wicked Witch Doctor, Azure Drake, Bloodlust, and Thunder Bluff. It's kind of finishing moves, and then things from below to finish it off. So lots of totem synergy, and this is like full out totem synergy.
I was basically running that like a very similar list, I think, on day 1, except I went a little further, which might have been incorrect. It was a bit too much. When I put a Thalnos in, because I felt like it had to be a bit more mid-rangey, so I put in like Thalnos with 1 Stormcrack. But if you think that Primal Fusion all in is just straight up better, then I'm gonna have to try this out, because like I feel like you do starve for cards occasionally, So you probably have to run double Manatite. No, you have to run double Manatite, I imagine.
Imagine having a 5 health Manatite totem.
Yeah.
I know.
It's so hard to remove.
With no silence right now? That's like amazing.
This is a little bit of a different version. Like I said, took inspiration from a couple different players.
Sure.
But Loyan plays a version without Arch and Squire. It has Tonal Trog, and it has 1 copy of Feral Spirits.
Okay.
So that's sort of a similar list. This one's more... it's hard to say the differences. You can cut like a Mana Tide. You don't have to play Azure Drake, things like that. But I don't know which one's better. I saw Loyan played that one to much success, but I didn't like Tunnel Trog because there's not as many Overload cards. But this one,
I feel like in this deck, Trog would be better than.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Squire is just no. I think Squire with Primal Fusion is just a disgusting card. Like in the mid game and Flame Tongue is ridiculous.
But you have Lightning Bolts here too, and then you've got Totems, and you've got a lot of ways to actually get. I mean, just at least buy time or buy board with Trog.
The one card that pushes Tunnel Trog into being better, I think, is Feral Spirits, and I really didn't like Feral Spirits in the deck. And Loyan only ran when he was streaming it the other day. Only ran 1 copy. And so I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, be able to protect.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think on Feral Spirit just being clunky because you have to run double Storm in that list. And the Maelstrom Portal, I guess we could debate. I just really like having 1 AOE from Maelstrom and 2 from Storms. It's just super consistent because even in those, because what this deck does is so slow at just swinging the board that you need to be able to stall a bit, and the consistency of those 3 stalls together is just over the top. Yeah. Maybe double Squire. I'm not sure. It's just it's a really interesting list because you can tweak it. Like there's like four slots that I'm happy to just tweak all the time in this one deck.
But I encourage people to give this deck a try. It's pretty tough to play. It's much tougher than regular mid-range Shaman.
Yeah,
you have to really look for those swing turns. And I don't know. I said there's a lot of players. I don't know exactly what rank I am right now, but I've been playing against a lot of it today. I'm 248. I've been playing against a lot of it today.
How do you catch up? I mean, like you're talking about swing turns, right? I mean, Lightning Storm isn't that strong against the mid-range.
What? Dude.
The mid-range decks, though? I mean, the aggro decks is really strong, but...
Mid-range decks, you're just going to get on the board, and they're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, they can't even push off a 0-4...
you're talking about the Totems and stuff. Sure.
Mid-range, yeah. So decks that get off to a fast start are the ones that you need those swing turns. But mid-range decks will not deal with your totems.
Yeah,
they don't want to swing weapons into your totems. So they feel like
they can't.
Like dumbass when they do that.
Yeah, and you just totem pass is so strong with this deck as well. And sometimes you're just like totem pass turn 1, totem pass turn 2, totem pass turn 3, Wicked Witch Doctor, Totemic Might turn 4. All of a sudden you have 3 totems that have 4 health and a Wicked Witch Doctor on the board that they have to remove, or you're just gonna Primal Fusion them for 8. Like
that is pretty sick. That is definitely
so.
I'm gonna have to try this one out tonight.
Yeah,
this sounds awesome.
I think you'll love it. It's right up your alley. Like you keep talking about making like interesting Shaman decks. This is definitely one of the more like people kept telling me that Wicked Witch Doctor was nothing but a Violet Teacher, and I would be inclined to agree if Totemic Might wasn't a card. Like that's the problem. When people keep telling me that, I'm like, yeah, but there's no card that literally reads 0 mana, buff 2 things, possibly 3, 4, 5.
That you generate,
Like how insane is this?
I still think Wicked Witch Doctor. Man. I'd rather have a totem than a 1/1.
Yeah, every day. A 0/2 is so much tougher to remove.
Also, totem can also be a 1/1.
Value. Yeah, sure.
Totem can be a 1/1.
It's a 1/3 with Totemic Might.
It's just got synergy though.
Thing from below reads whenever you summon a totem,
win the game.
So all of a sudden, you can make even bigger swing turns because now you have Tuskar Totemic.
You can literally
totem
every turn. Yeah.
People also sometimes forget, unless they're playing Thunderbolt Valiant, that Totem Golem is also a totem. Totemic Might also buffs Totem Golem.
Outside of one turn, which is turn 1, or even if you coin, if you have 2 Totem Golems, you can literally have like a solid minion to represent your
Primal
totem plays
Fusion
into
turns anything into a nightmare. Like Primal Fusion. So I think this is why Feral Spirit is so bad in the deck. Is that swing turn needs to you often need to have on like 5 or 6 if you want to play the Doctor. You need to have like 1 mana for a spell and then say Primal Fusion or Totemic Might, such that you get like this 4-minion board, one of which is a real minion that you actually played, which is the Witch Doctor. The rest is like leftover totems you hit up with a hero power that costs you nothing.
Yeah.
And just because of the fact that you get so many free minions, it's like you turn every matchup into a like control warrior matchup where you just hit the hero power button and they can't kill everything, and you just bloodlust or valiant them down. It's ridiculously good.
Primal Fusion also, the spell registers and the totem spawns before it resolves.
Yeah, the value is like
if you Primal Fusion something, it'll actually count the totem that spawns.
Oh, you get an extra 1/1? Wow.
So you get an extra +1/+1.
Nice.
So
that sounds pretty sweet, man. That sounds
like
pretty
a
sweet.
This is Wicked Witch Doctor.
This is definitely the deck for all the listeners and viewers to try out this week for sure. Oh, this is gonna be sweet. Okay, well, yeah, thanks for bringing that, TJ. This has been a lot of fun talking about.
Happy you brought it up.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Any other decks? I think that we've actually spent a lot of time talking about decks. Why don't we move on to HCT and the North American Prelims that happened this past weekend, and of course TJ worked it, and was definitely all about. Was working the chalkboard picks a lot too. How did you end up doing? Actually, I forget who your picks were. I don't think anybody did well, right?
I picked Frozen and Vanquisher.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Vanquisher was I always pick one pick that I actually know is going to do reasonably well, based Frozen. Just off statistics, which was Frozen, and then one which is sort of like a pick that is a player that I follow or am friends with or know well, that has been having a lot of success recently, that is feeling good going into the tournament. That's just like a pick that if you get it right, you look like a genius.
Like a genius, yeah.
Like I totally knew this guy was gonna win.
Exactly.
That's a good risk.
A lot of people do the same things. Kibler's one of the ones that doesn't. Because
who do you think? He could be like 6-0 and
he can't be right.
No, last week he was 6-0. Last week I know that.
Kibler could write like poop on the board twice, and people would still be like, Kibler's a genius.
Exactly. How did he know?
But it's so I didn't get it this time, and
I don't think anybody got any of them, did they?
No, for both EU and NA, nobody got them. But for NA, it was a little bit better because Rosti and Yoet's Flow were still on the board, and they made 9th through 12th.
Yeah.
Muzzy wasn't on the board, no. But yeah, it was pretty bad for the guys.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, everybody picked Teray except me. I picked Disguise, Toast, and Crypt.
This guy's so synchronized.
That's pretty ballsy.
Just to kind of run through the top 8, it ended up being a Dude 7597, which those of you wondering about the numbers, it's his birthday, right? Hot Meowth. How do you pronounce that? Hot Meowth? Meowth. Yeah,
it's a Pokemon.
Oh
dude.
Gosh, that's right, dude. My son's more into Pokemon than I am. So.
I see.
Teray,
that's disappointing.
Yeah. Teray, Tapu Pablo 11, Roof Trellin, which had the best reactions of the tournament whenever he won, and Pascoa, Monsanto, and Abar. So congratulations to those guys. But yeah, Roof Trellin, man, definitely my favorite character from the from the tournament, with the way he was reacting to victories or awesome draws. Those are always great to see. What'd you guys think of the decks that people were running? Any trends that you saw that worth noting?
I mean, trends we didn't expect. I'm happy that Freeze Mage showed up a little bit, and some anything can happen. Trend-wise, I'm not sure if there's anything out of the ordinary.
I really liked how a lot of players didn't try and beat the best decks, but tried to make strategies that were just as powerful as bringing the best decks. And I just want to clarify, by best decks, I mean Aggro Shaman, Zoo Warlock, Dragon Warrior, and Yogg Druid or Token Druid. Those are the widely regarded as the 4 decks that are strongest in Conquest at the moment.
Right.
I'm thinking about players like Chalky, who ended up bringing Rogue, Tempo Mage.
Rogue was an interesting pick, definitely.
Yeah,
this week.
and so players that bring the Dragon Warrior variant effectively just ban Warrior all the time, and that's a good strategy. And what the Rogue / Tempo Mage / I can't even remember what the other decks were. It was Rogue, Tempo Mage, Aggro Shaman,
Shaman was in there,
and Control Warrior.
Oh, Control Warrior.
I know there was an Aggro Sham.
Cycle Cthulhu Control Warrior. And what this did was it didn't try and beat the best decks. It tried to do what they did, and that was like beat up on most decks, but also have really good matchups against Druid. And so what they would do is they would beat alternative deck styles. So they would beat the greedy control lists that tried to beat the best decks, like the Murloc Paladins and the Freeze Mages, which a lot of people ended up bringing, because you just roll over those with Aggro Shaman, with Tempo Mage, with Rogue. Those all beat those greedy control decks as well as the 4 best decks. But they also targeted Druid, because Rogue, Tempo Mage, Aggro Shaman are also all good against Druid.
Right.
So it wasn't a strategy to counter the meta. It was a strategy to both counter the meta, as well as counter the people that were countering,
and counter the counter meta too.
So it was next level, and there was a lot of players that had success bringing that exact style. And Yoet's Flow was one of them. He almost made it. Chalky was one of them. That whole sort of practice group, Muzzy was also one of them, but he didn't settle on. He settled on Reno Lock instead of like Rogue, which sort of does the same thing. It beats up on control decks. It beats up on warriors. That lineup bans Shaman almost exclusively if they're playing aggro, even if they're playing Concede Shaman or Bog Creeper Shaman.
Yeah,
so that strategy was really cool to me, and
they had a lot of success too. I mean, it was definitely a good strategy, and I know Chalky just had a few kind of crazy moments, at least with his Rogue, that ended up costing him. He had that one good match with the Rogue that had a very poor RNG.
Shit happens, dude.
Yeah, but that basically cost him. He couldn't win any of the other matches with that Rogue, unfortunately. Yeah. So what'd you guys think about? What would you say was the deck of the weekend? The deck that performed best.
Anything can happen Paladin, like the hybrid was pretty cool to see, but
pretty cool to see, but didn't
really
have
super
much
strong
success.
last week. So that was interesting, because the 6-0 obviously had a lot of success with that, I believe, the previous week, right? So a lot of people knew about that deck this time around. How many times did we actually see that variant of it? I mean, I definitely saw Anythins.
We saw it from Roof, I think.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, we saw it from Roof.
Roof played no Murlocs, and Hot Meowth played no N'Zoth.
Yeah, so we didn't actually see both.
Roof had
the one that came up with the hybrid was like I think it failed. The one that like tried to mix both styles.
That one's just trying to do too much stuff. I think
trying to do too much stuff at once.
Even Hot Meowth's Paladin deck didn't perform that well. He would just steamroll with his first 2 decks and give himself 3 chances to win with Murloc Paladin and barely scrape by. So I wonder how he actually had 2 or 3 broadcasted matches, and that was the case in all of them. I didn't get a chance to ask him how his Murloc Paladin performed in non-stream matches, but I can't imagine it did exceptionally well. He made it pretty far through the winners bracket, so he only had to win 5 total matches. So, and we watched 2 of those that he won.
Right.
So, can't have been that good.
Yeah. It seemed like everybody was banning Warrior for the most part, though. Maybe except for that group that you were talking about. I think you might have read out the statistics for it at one point during the broadcast, and it was something like 500 and something bans or something? I forget what it was. It was something ridiculous versus 100. It was ridiculous. Versus
Shaman and Warrior.
Yeah, and
Shaman and Warrior.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anything else? Obviously, some of the key moments in the thing was obviously the Yogg-Saron everybody was talking about, right? That happened to Dude. And
wait, which one?
I know, which one, right? It happened several times.
Was like 75,000 of them, but yeah.
The Dude one was a 5-spell Yogg. Probably the best 5-spell Yogg that I've ever seen.
On a full board, right? From Zoo. Yeah, which is...
I'm actually...
Just got to get right.
Yeah, I'm really good friends with Muzzy, who Dude beat in the lower bracket match to qualify.
Yep.
And even in that matchup, I didn't know who to root for because I wanted Dude to win so bad because of like justice against Yogg-Sarons everywhere, being defeated by Yogg-Saron and then coming back and winning. So that was a tough match to watch. That one where Dude got yogged.
I mean, like from a caster perspective over there, like you have to spin it as though it's like a calculated risk. Like I don't really know how people pull it off. Like the Frodan incident when Karazhan reveals, like, yep, I do love to make my minions worse. I feel like that's just the way I'd go about it.
calculated risk is it's not.
It's not a calculated risk.
That's the way it's spinned, like by when you're casting, which is really tough.
I mean, what's the risk? You usually play when you're behind. So
I'm not saying it's calculated risk.
Yeah,
don't misquote me.
Yeah,
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm okay. Then I'm agreeing. It's not. The thing is, and Caster said a lot. You probably heard us say it many times throughout the weekend. You get behind in the early game, and you say, "Okay, this is a Yogg game."
Yep.
It's not a risk.
Gotta go all in on
it. It's a comeback condition, a win condition. And
at any point in the game, it's a win condition.
But this is a big thing, a big debate that's going on, and it's kind of one-sided. But since I am a broadcaster, and I am primarily I only do competitive matches. Really, I don't do personal streams because I'm too busy with broadcasting like competitive stuff. Even from a competitive standpoint, I understand why Yogg is probably not going to be banned, or it's not going to be rotated out early, or things like that. It is fun. It is fun to watch. It is exciting. It's fun to play. It's not fun to be on the other end of it, but there's a lot of cards that aren't like that. People can complain about the randomness of Yogg, but there's so much randomness in Hearthstone. Every card you draw from your deck is random, even though that one has more control over the course of the game with which draws you get, with cards that have random effects attached to them. You're going to get as much random effects as Yogg. Just Yogg throws it into one package and shoves it in your face. And so that's why people look at that and they think, but I think that other things, like one of the games that Teray played against Chalky got unlucky so many times in a row, and I think that game was worse
to watch. Yeah, I agree with you.
From watching that standpoint than that Yogg game of Dude, and there was no other there was very little random effects that were involved that people complain about in the Chalky Teray game than there was in the Dude game. So I don't know. I think that Yogg is problematic, but is it going to go away? I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't think it will. I think for a little while too. I think Yogg was one of the few things that made Hearthstone enjoyable, like before Karazhan came out, because there was like this dry time where the metagame was. I wouldn't say figured out, because that would be a big stretch. Given more time, it might have shifted more, but it was just kind of dry. Like we'd seen enough Dragon Warrior on Zoo on Shaman. Like it was just kind of getting stale. And the occasional druid that played the Yogg was pretty interesting.
It was hipster to play Yogg, and because we were seeing it mostly with Mage to begin with, and then Jackie came out with his druid, and that's when we started seeing it played more on the ladder. And then now, look at all these decks we have, or these lists we have. I think how many players? Let's see, maybe 5 or 6 out of the 8 players had at least one Yogg deck in their deck.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's.
I mean, the thing is, there's there's a million ways in which Yogg can do things. It's just flashier, because you see the sequence of spells, and it feels like they are meaningful. But in truth, if you could boil it down to probability, and just not even see the train to the wreck. If you just saw the wreck at the very end, then it's less aggravating, I guess.
Well, it's one of these things where I think a lot of people on Reddit have done the calculations, and the community at this point knows that Yogg, more so than not, will be beneficial to the person that casts it. And if you're looking at it from a high level standpoint, then if you're playing against a Yogg deck, you should take that into account. Just like you take into account any kind of board removal card,
well, how do you take it into account?
I know, but I'm just saying, if you just think of it in terms of not investing too much into the board, that sort of thing, what you can lose.
Yeah, you can play around Yogg. I just want to clarify that I'm not defending Yogg.
Oh, no. Sense. I mean, I wasn't necessarily defending it either. I was about to just the counterpoint, saying that.
Yeah, I glanced at chat, and some people think I'm defending Yogg in a competitive sense. I honestly believe, and I think that competitive Hearthstone would be a little bit better without Yogg than it would be with Yogg. I don't think it's as problematic as some people think it is, but I do think that maybe third-party organizers should start banning Yogg and pressuring Blizzard to do it.
Yeah, ban lists are something Blizzard hasn't liked very much. We had like some interesting bans early in Hearthstone's life with like little tournaments that we ran, but I don't think Blizzard likes that at all.
We have not seen an event that literally bans like a few cards versus, you know, have some thematic thing like we saw at Challenge Stone, right? That's probably the closest thing that we've had, like a subset of cards being played, but actually having like a normal tournament with one card ban, I don't think we've ever seen that in Hearthstone.
The thing is, Yogg is fun to watch, like we said, but maybe not at the highest level competitive play. You don't want to see Yogg decide a game at the World Championship. You don't want to see Yogg decide a game to see who goes to the top 8 at America's Championship, which happened twice over the course of HCT. This last thing. That's the difference of at least $2,500.
Yeah.
Decided by that game. That's the difference between 9th through 12th and 5th through 8th. It's $2,500. I'm pretty sure. And so it's a little bit weird. Maybe some changes. Maybe not remove it from the game.
It's so diplomatic right now, man. This is like this is so funny.
Well, more or less, because like we've agreed that Yogg is like it's a bullshit way to win because it's but it's mostly because it's like a hopeless scenario. When I look at the cost of Twisting Nether and I look at the cost of Yogg, I just have to wonder. I agree they're not the same, and they're not the same.
But it's not just that, right? There's other things involved too.
I have a proposition, and this all this credit goes to, or at least the credit from who I heard it from, goes to Sottle, one of a good friend of mine who, of course, you guys know from catching HCT. Sure. What if Yogg was limited to only casting spells that filled up as much mana as you spent on spells throughout the game?
Sure,
it is a little more complex, but Yogg is already sort of a complex card. It's already some people might look at it and say it's a little bit hard to understand, especially some of the French case scenarios like do Yogg spells count as your own for other things?
Probably not.
But like say you cast 16 mana worth of spells throughout the game. You play Yogg-Saron, Yogg-Saron will cast random spells until he's filled up 16 mana.
Okay, so like I could see how that works. Like if you want to play the double Pyroblast, double Mind Control type decks, then suddenly you want to play Yogg for fun on top of that crap. I'm not saying it's good. It's just like for the casual players, that's where they'd go. You know, the ones that play Purified. Whereas the competitive players would not get like Twisting Nether into double Call the Wild. It just almost couldn't happen, especially with Innervades being around and Idols.
You'd be more easily able to calculate odds, even though it'd still be pretty abysmal odds.
Yeah,
for
but
you to
like,
calculate. You'd still be more easily able to do it.
So what happens if like he innervates into Totemic Might into Innervate into Totemic Might into Innervate? Because like that costs nothing, right?
Costs nothing.
That's why Yogg wouldn't cast nothing, or he would only cast 0 mana. See,
so
there are 0
mana. Cast 0 spells forever. Like,
I know that's what's weird too, right? So there's definitely a gotcha scenario there where there are just a bunch of 0 mana spells. Yeah. So I don't know. I think when you're at that point,
the idea.
I mean, it's an interesting idea where the mana bank concept, but in the end, I think you might as well just choose an X number of spells and figure out what that is mathematically. That's reasonable, because as you cast more and more spells, we all know that there's more and more chance that the overall result will be beneficial to the person that plays Yogg. And if we can just find whatever that number is it 3 spells? Is it 4 spells? I don't know what it is, but I think it would be, if we ended up changing the card to be that, then it could be acceptable, I think, in pro play. Right now, it's just, you say it's fun to watch, but it's not so fun to watch anymore after we've seen it like a lot of times. It really isn't. So
I have one more thing, possible suggestion for Yogg-Saron.
Okay.
And the third solution before I get to second solution is to ban it from competitive play. But let me go to second solution.
Okay. Right.
Actually, yeah. So second solution, what if it was like a Draxus effect, where
you became Yogg-Saron?
You became Yogg-Saron, set your health to a certain amount.
Okay. Yeah.
And then casted all the random spells.
So it's actually
you're like at 10 health and you rip in pieces.
More like
so you don't have a 7/5 on board.
Yeah.
2, you can't play it when you're like, if you play it when you're healthy, you'll just get rid of all your health to try and like come back on a board if you don't have any cards left. 3, you're more likely to kill yourself, much more likely to kill yourself. So it's a very high risk card. It becomes like a better Major Domo in a sense, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even know if it is or not. Actually, 5 health. Wow.
Well, 5 health.
But the idea is
like even like raise the health a little bit.
Yeah, I mean 5 health is really low. Major Domo is.
They could make Yogg like a 7/7 and give you like the 7 health count or whatever.
And your hero power, you lose your hero power. Your hero power would become cast a random spell for 2 mana.
So what if like, because we talked about like ways to fix Yogg. I think that one is really, really elegant in the way that it's still super pleasing aesthetically, just in every way. But it's also a lot higher risk because you can't just win and be safe on the following turn more often than not. But like one of the things that was suggested is just to cut out Yogg from competitive play entirely, is to simply make it so both players cast spells instead of just you. So you would cast 10 spells, the opponent would cast 10, and in the end, like
wow.
No, but the point is you wouldn't like the odds of you actually racing ahead are pretty slim at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if 10 spells are casted from each side, in theory, it should be
just
equal.
A null. Yeah, it's a null.
It should be equal. It's just that would take a long time. The animation for all that would be, it'd definitely be your turn, or pretty close to your turn if you're talking about 10 plus spells. They might have to increase the speed of all the spells, but I don't know. I don't love that one either, to be honest. It's just like we're just casting a bunch of spells, all at once, and it's just this maelstrom basically.
But again, I don't really know if they're going to change any cards because then they have to ban it for formats and reprint it again.
Yeah, it's really tough.
I keep forgetting.
Like, how are you going to play Modern
digital
without Yogg?
Digital. Oh man. So
it's got to become a meme at some point. Like at some point, that needs to stick as like an actual 3-word catchy meme.
Yeah,
we need to find one for that. I don't know. I can't even believe the amount of changes we've seen. And like I understand why they're pacing those. Like I get it, but ultimately, I feel like a casual player will enjoy Yogg even if it's not playable competitively. Like if the goal of if they justify printing shit like Purify because the casual player likes to play Ancient Watchers and blah blah blah, then surely making Yogg worse like Domo is fine, even if if it becomes bad for people to play with at high level.
Yeah, I mean I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I think it's best in that bucket. Unfortunately, I don't think they will. Well, not only will they just not change it generally, they particularly won't change it when we're having even more influx with the meta, with new cards and stuff. So we'll see it at BlizzCon. I'm almost I would bet a lot of money that we see it at BlizzCon, just because, again, like it's going to be hard for them to even measure.
I don't know, because there was... Okay.
Inside information here.
No.
Okay.
This is not inside information. This is based off of history. They don't tell me anything. They don't tell me anything.
All right.
Yeah. I'm not Frodan yet. They
don't tell me. He's working on it.
But last year they changed a problematic card right before BlizzCon.
Yeah. They
did.
Commander.
They changed a problematic card that was played in a very powerful deck right before BlizzCon. So I'm just saying, don't rule it out that they're not going to take feedback and maybe make changes. I wouldn't expect them to be like sweeping changes because I don't know, they tend to not make sweeping changes very often, but they did with Warsong Commander. They effectively removed it from the game because they weren't sure what it was going to go. Of course, Warsong Commander, they talked about how it wasn't generally because it was strong in Patron. They talked about how it was mainly because it limited their design space to make charge minions in the future, or it limited their design to make minions that were
minions,
less than low attack status.
Low attack stuff, like Dreadsteed or something.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yogg-Saron, I feel like, even though it's a lot different of a case, it still serves a similar purpose in where, it's going to limit design space because you're going to think, well, if we print the spell,
Yogg
just
gets
cast by
it just gets cast by anybody.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, to your point, they do have some record of doing so, but I'm just kind of looking at, okay, so we still got a week. So we got this week coming up for Wing 3, and then we got another wing after that, and we've got 2 or 3 weeks still left in releasing the expansion, And you got to think that, a month's time is probably not enough data, and that actually pushes through, just the actual qualifications, who actually goes to BlizzCon. And so it would have to happen in the next month. And I just don't see that happening, or at the end of next month. And I don't know. I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised.
It was a week before the final championships, right?
Which is what? That's like the beginning of October, right? Like
that last year. That was beginning of October last year. That's what it was. I can't remember the exact date. It might have been like the end of September that it was changed, but it definitely had a lot of effect. And people, I don't know. There's that opens up another debate of should they change things more often? Should they change things before tournaments more often? Because higher, like the best players will be the ones that are the best at innovating and deck building right when changes come out.
Yeah.
Which is why championships are going to be interesting. Osaka won with post nerf Patron Warrior in his lineup, and that was when he didn't really have much time, because players for BlizzCon submit deck lists pretty far in advance. It's actually 3 weeks before. This is
kind of why we had no Karazhan
because of opening week.
Yeah.
Because they have to submit it a week before opening week begins, and opening week begins the Thursday, the weekend before BlizzCon happens.
Yeah.
And so it's like 2.5 weeks in advance deck lists are due for BlizzCon. So he didn't have much time to experiment.
And we all know the meta changes, like definitely in 2 weeks time. So that's it's not ideal, but I can understand why they did it, obviously. So I guess we'll have to see. Just with Yogg, it's an ongoing question. I mean, it's going to keep coming up, and we're going to keep seeing more and more of it. We'll have to see if it gets to the point where Blizzard does have to do something about it. All right, well, let's do some viewer Q&A. Sound good, guys?
Let's do it.
Let's see what we got here. So we did have a question, like the first question that I read to you, like when we were getting set up here, was CJ Bennett from Twitter. Oh, by the way, guys, if you want to ask your question, go ahead and tweet to me at ChanManV, and I'll read out the questions. If we run out of questions on Twitter, I'll go to Twitch and we'll Twitch chat and we'll read one from there. So, also I want to give a shout out to some of the patrons too. I always forget to do it during the show, but and not at the end of the show. We do have a patron for ValueTown. If you want to support the show, it's patreon.com/ValueTown. And I want to give a shout out to a few of our patrons, kind of what we do each week. Devin Westfall, Cameron McMillan, Jacob Perez, David Thomas, and Eric Hopp. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And we're gonna start incorporating some of the patrons and subs in the deck tech, and just maybe taking a look at one of the decks each week. Very soon. Nice. Yeah, it's gonna be really fun. All right, so let's take a question here from CJ Bennett. Who is your favorite caster that is not Frodan or yourself? I guess that's to at least you two. I don't cast anything, so you guys.
Come on, Chad, man.
It's been a long time.
I mean,
yeah, and we got to meet.
Shocky. I say Shocky is like Shocky definitely is up there. Like Firebat's got a lot of recognition recently, obviously.
Yeah,
but I think Shocky's kind of a guy we don't see enough. Yet he's just really good. At least I like the way he casts, personally.
Okay, so Shocky. How about you, TJ?
That's a tough one. That is a really tough one.
I mean, there's different roles too. Like every. Yeah,
so there's people that I enjoy casting with the most. There's people that I think I work the best with, and there's people that I enjoy talking with outside of casting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they all fit different categories. That's not Frodan. Okay. Shocky is probably the most fun to cast with.
I'm sure.
If you like to meme.
You like to meme. We all like to meme.
Admirable is he's sort of polarizing to some people, but I really think Admirable's a great caster who's worked pretty hard over the past couple months, and I think me and him do great together because we cast together so often.
Yeah, you do.
But I think all around my favorite caster besides Frodan or myself would probably be Sottle. Sottle just does just everything well. I think for a while people thought Sottle was just like this cynical guy who lived in cold, dark England, but I think he's really has a unique casting style, and he does just about a lot of things well. And I got to cast with him for the first time in forever over the past in the past weekend. We casted like twice over HCT, and we had to cast through like the worst technical issues you could possibly imagine. We started a match, and then that match they had internet issues at the venue, so we had to fill for like 30 minutes. And then they started a new match, and we got all the way to game 5, and then we had technical issues again and had to fill for another 15 minutes until they finally swapped us out. And those are the times when casters get tested the hardest, when they have to talk stone for an amount of time that is not defined. When nobody's telling you, hey, you guys fill for 5 more minutes, they're like, we don't know. Fill until we tell you to stop.
Exactly.
Good luck. Yeah.
So, and Sado and I actually enjoyed the conversations that we had, and that's rare when you have to feel like that. So I'll say Sado.
Gosh, for me, that's a tough question. Gosh, it might be. I mean, it's just mostly just style wise. I think it is Firebat actually. I like Killer too, but I think Firebat is probably just the one that I prefer the most, just because it has a little bit to do with just because I know him so well, and everything that he says is just, you know, a lot of times sometimes I don't see, you know, some of the comments that he makes that are very enlightening to me. So at least recently it's been Firebat. All right, next up is the Iger Ost. Do you think the curator will see play in Mill Rogue? Of course, in some way, right?
Oh my god!
It's got to be in some way.
What beast are you gonna play in Mill Rogue?
I don't know what beast, but you know, just the Oracle for sure.
What dragon are you gonna play in?
Mukla. You play Mukla.
Yeah, Mukla. There you go. Mukla.
The
Mukla.
6 drop.
That's right. Mukla.
What dragon?
I'm trying to push it, dude. I'm trying to push.
Oh, you can play either. You can play both Muklas. You can play both Muklas.
Play Drake, and you play Malagos to the top end. So you can play a Malagos Miracle.
Malagos?
You use the bananas to
Malagos?
you use the bananas to draw. Use Cold Light to cycle, and yeah, I mean shit, we've got this nailed down. This deck's like top tier 1, tier 0 rogue. It just wrecks everything.
I think 7 mana is too expensive for Mill Rogue. I think Mill Rogue on 7 mana needs to be doing a lot more than putting 3 cards in their hand and passing. That is.
They need to shove your entire hand, like your board, into your hand and then play something.
You're already ganging up. You're already gonna have like 6 Cold Light Orals in your deck. You're already gonna draw probably 3 a turn anyway. You don't for 7 mana. Yeah. The idea seems creative, but I think Curator has a lot more place. In other decks.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah.
But right. It's a cool idea. It's a cool idea.
Dude, we got a lot of questions here. All right, we got some questions from some friends here too. But let's see. Another one here is from Georgie Barrios. Ask TJ if he prefers casting or playing competitive Hearthstone.
Whew. This question. Okay.
$1 million question. It's like asking.
Okay. People might be surprised by my answer. I highly prefer playing.
Yep.
But
that doesn't surprise me.
But playing is tough, man. Playing Hearthstone competitively is it stresses you out beyond belief, because there's so many things that are outside of your control. You're not gonna. It's not like CS:GO. You're not just gonna like flick shot somebody and just clutch it, you know, and just win the game and just go on pure adrenaline. Adrenaline is bad in Hearthstone because it forces you to like, it clutters your brain. It forces you to play off of instinct, and sometimes that's not good. You know, you have to think through your plays and actually think critically for a very long time, especially in a tournament when sometimes you either play 5 matches in a row or you play a match, wait 7 hours, and then play a match. It's exhausting. But don't get me wrong, I love casting, and people that have followed me for a long time, it's not very many people, but I casted for so long before I ever did anything relevant, and I did it for very little money for a long time because I loved it, and I eventually got good at the game, and so I love casting. It's higher, it's on average more money than playing by a very wide margin,
by a lot,
because most players don't make any money, and but playing, there's just something about playing that's just special. You know, playing in a tournament, I've only played in a few.
Yeah.
And I've actually done really well in a couple OBA tournaments, which are the ones that I like to play the most because those are relaxed. You're at home. You can just play a tournament and be done with it.
Yeah.
You're not on camera. There's not people watching you.
Those are the best kind, where you can just in the comfort of your house and.
But
good stuff.
It's incredible playing in a tournament and having people, you know, watch you make plays as bad as you might play. But yeah, I'd say playing.
All right. Well, speaking of Soddle, so he has a question for you, TJ. On the scale of 1 to Pantry Spider, how broken is Pantry Spider?
Oh my god,
dude! I love the card, but yeah,
God.
but TJ just doesn't.
I'm pretty sure
like
I
it.
asked Soddle that question. Like, I'm pretty sure.
Oh man, he's totally plagiarizing you, man.
I'm pretty sure I like stormed into the HCT green room at like European prelims
The
when
memes.
Pantry Spider first came out, and I just like pushed Soddle on the chest, and I asked him that question.
You're like
Right in his
pulling
face.
an admirable there, just
Yeah.
breaking in there. Yeah, Pantry Spider sucks, man.
Pantry Spider is broken.
Yeah, exactly.
I had just played Evolve deck, and you know, I was like high on the Pantry Spider endorphins, and
I like that the way you're phrasing it. The Pantry Spider endorphins.
exactly. There's something about evolving a Pantry, like
It's good. It's definitely good stuff, man, for sure.
this is not what Charles Darwin intended.
No, I don't think
I mean,
so.
dude, like
I
two,
don't
two
think so
4 mana
at all.
7/7s out of one card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there, you know.
All right, so Bonnie asks, Pedro Bonnie, do you think Arcane Giant is a good choice for Freeze Mage? Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Free Giants. I haven't tried it yet in Freeze Mage. I've tried it in all kinds of decks, but not Freeze Mage yet. Any of
It's
you guys
okay.
got a
Like
chance?
the freeze is, it's like playing Echo Mage in a way. Like the way you win with this, it feels like you win like Echo.
Yeah, kind of. Definitely very similar, at least that turn. Because you get pretty low. You have to spend a lot of spells for it to actually be that magical 0 mana turn.
Freeze Mage is probably the only deck in the game where I wouldn't want a free 8/8.
8/8, yeah, probably. It's like it's just I don't think it's a win condition that's better than spells because you just always set up for the following turn, and that just doesn't do it well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, remember
You
back in
need
the
to
day
try.
when we had Freeze Mage Giants, Moltons, and back in the day?
Yeah, I remember that, but that was I don't think it was freeze as much as Echo.
The Freeze Mage list is really tight right now. Especially
Lots
since
of
Mad
burns,
Scientist,
yeah.
especially since Mad Scientist is gone. You can't really afford to not have enough cycle,
Yeah.
and you can't really afford to miss turns. Freeze Mage is such a cheap, not a cheap deck. It's a very low mana cost on average deck. Most of your stuff's like 2 mana, 3 mana. And if you draw an Arcane Giant early, which is pretty likely, you might just lose.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and you've got 2 in the deck, you might just get run over, and you can't miss turns as Free Mage. Every single turn matters. You see people go to great lengths to buy themselves one more draw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they use Ice Lance, which is a burn in their deck, to buy themselves a turn. Arcane Giant probably not buying you a turn, especially early on in the game, and that's where those turns matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I don't think that's. I don't know.
Maybe if you give me back Echo, then maybe we can talk about like an interesting
Blood
mage
Warrior.
list.
And then
Some way.
it's,
Not even
it's,
Blood Warriors,
then
man.
Yeah, Blood Warrior.
then it's not Freeze Mage, then it's
Yeah, it's
then
another
Echo
deck.
Mage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different deck.
There you go. Okay, last thing. So this question's kind of we kind of answered a little bit with Beast Druid, but he does have a follow up. So Fresh 802 asks, "What is the expected viability of Beast Druid upon the new wing release? Is Dragon Warrior still simply superior for what it does?" So I guess we're talking about mid-range decks. You know, like Dragon Warrior has been the epitome of mid-range decks for months now, and it is the measuring stick. Whenever we're trying to introduce new mid-range decks, particularly in the dragon space, I mean in the warrior space, I don't think there is anything that's even close at this point. You know, do people run the Beast Druid deck over the Dragon Warrior deck if they're building like a 3-deck lineup or 4-deck lineup?
Depends. I think Hunter is going to be the determining factor in whether or not that gets played. Like how much I think that Hunter's more I think of the direct competitor.
Okay.
Right now than.
Oh, you mean to the
Dragon
Dragon Warrior? You mean?
Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know.
I mean,
I think so.
You think so?
They do similar things. Why would you bring Beast Druid to trying to punish greedy control decks?
Yeah, we talked
Beast
about
Druid
it.
doesn't.
Beast Druid,
Yeah, Beast Druid doesn't have like board control elements. So you're gonna get run over by Zoo Warlocks a lot of the time, unless you get a really great start.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're gonna get run over by Aggro Shaman, things like that. Unless you can get those overstated things early on, but Yeah, they kind of feel a similar board as Hunter, where you're trying to punish those greedy control decks, but Hunter's getting a lot of tools, and I don't know if Menagerie Warden's going to be enough. We'll have to see. I mean, like I said earlier, Rosti had success at NA Prelims with Beast Druid without Menagerie Warden, and a Beast Druid list that I don't think was as refined as it could be, especially with Menagerie Warden being in the card pool. So I think it'll be a tier 2 deck.
Yeah, I mean, just because he had a lot of success with it doesn't necessarily mean it's better than Dragon Warrior. I mean, his Dragon Warrior, did he have Dragon Warrior? He probably had Dragon Warrior. You know, it's probably banned a ton too. So, yeah, I think measuring it up against those two, I'm still not sure. I still think Dragon Warrior's going to be better for a while. Beast Druid, with the success they've had, it's still been way behind. You know, it's like Menagerie is going to catch him up, and you know, I don't think it's going to necessarily put them over the top, given how much of a deficit that they already had in terms of power. Yeah.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Go.
Of course. Yeah. This last question. We're gonna wrap up after this.
Okay. We didn't talk about Kindly Grandmother.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. You wanted to talk about Kindly
And I wanted to
Grandmother.
talk about Kindly
Yeah,
Grandmother.
let's talk about it.
I want Noxious to talk about it first. And then,
Sure.
okay. What do you think of Kindly Grandmother, Noxious? Pretend I'm tweeting. Hello, Noxious. At Noxious.
What is this?
I think this
Noxious.
card's the best Hunter
Is
card
this
in the
role
set.
playing now? Okay, here we go.
It's the best Hunter 2-drop of all time, besides Scientist. There we go.
Okay.
All right, yeah, that's fair. That's
I-
all it's said about it.
I don't like Kindly Grandmother.
Okay. Explain, TJ.
That's it.
All right.
Elaborate,
Yeah.
baby.
End the show.
Can
No, I'm
I
just kidding.
get a look at the
And you're the
script
guy
that
who
you guys
likes
have?
to, you like to run double Houndmaster, right?
Okay. All right. So I played it in my list. We showed a list. I don't know if we showed it earlier,
Yeah,
but
let me see if I
we
can
might
pull
have
it.
showed it.
I don't think we
I
did.
played
but
a-
I can pull it up.
Played a list earlier with Kindly Grandmother. Kindly Grandmother has not performed well for me. Kindly Grandmother has been one of my lowest win rate cards in my Hunter deck.
Jesus.
The only other the only two other cards when played that gave me a lower win rate in the Hunter deck earlier were like Snake Trap and Unleash the Hounds, and that was like it.
I
And
guess
you say
Zoo's not
Unleash-
around, right? So
Yeah, I mean there is still a bit of Zoo, but when people realize that it's Snake Trap, they're just gonna ignore it. And Kindly Grandmother is too slow. I feel like Kindly Grandmother is I'd almost always rather have a Huge Toad.
I
on
think
turn
you play
2.
both in the same deck, though, right?
Yeah, you play
Don't you
both.
play-
in
I
this
think I
deck,
play
right?
4 2-drops, and these are the 4 I choose.
I mean,
Yeah, but
Kindly-
like sometimes I feel like I'd rather have a King's Like I'd rather have a 3-2
Oh,
right
wow,
away
okay,
than
now
have a
that's
1-1
interesting.
and a 3-2. Like everything that a 3-2 trades into, it feels like Kindly Grandmother also trades into. You just do it a turn later, so you take more damage.
You definitely do take. I mean, that's a good point. I mean,
So,
Hunter,
I-
Hunter not
I
having
was-
heal and taking damage early is really, really bad.
Yeah, and you end up losing races, and you end up
Yep.
playing. You end up like look at the popular decks right now. Druid is maybe the only one where it might be a little bit better, but even then, I don't even know, because what if you play a Kindly Grandmother and then they innervate out a threat? You have a 1-1 on the board. Like, what are you gonna do to kill that? You can't even Houndmaster it up to kill a Violet Teacher right away. You can't. I mean, yeah, you can still kill command, but you'd be able to do it with a 3-2 anyway and push 3 damage right
Push 3
away.
damage right away, yeah. And start, like, putting on the pressure instead of trying to just live until Call the Wild, you beat them before or with it.
Yeah, it's strictly a value card,
Okay,
and right
I
now
see what
the
you
meta
mean.
is not a value meta. You're not going
Totem
to
Shaman.
beat-
Just wait.
Well, I think it relies heavily on the
Yeah.
Houndmaster play. So if you don't have the
Yeah.
Houndmaster play at all, then yeah, you fall behind and you lose races like probably easily. But if you
Yeah.
can land the Houndmaster on either the Grandmother or the Big Bad Wolf, then you're probably in good position as a hunter.
Yeah, I'm still playing it. I still think it's a card that makes the cut for the deck. Because there's not a good enough 2-drops yet, but I still think that it's not the most broken 2-drop that
People have been
we've
saying.
seen. Because at least for the current meta, if the meta switches and we get more towards a value-oriented game, and we get more towards control decks ruling all and value style control decks ruling all, which it might be after Karazhan's release,
But,
then it's going to
yeah.
be great. But right now, it feels like you can't afford to not have a powerful play on turn 2, as a hunter when the meta is filled with aggressive shamans, when the meta is filled with Zulaks and druids who innovate things out, and dragon warriors who okay, so what if they play?
I think you're missing abusive.
Yeah, abusive is, I think
you're missing abusive from this list, because like I run it in my deck. You don't like having 4/1 drops. As you mentioned earlier, you're doubling up on Houndmaster and one Wolf. I think like double abusive and Hunter is still really good.
But then if you play abusives, you have to play Argent Squires.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to. You could actually go.
It's better to have.
No, you can go.
Then
you can double abusive because grandmother's there.
But then your deck sort of loses some of its. It loses its mid game. And where do you make cuts? You make cuts with secrets, but if you don't have secrets, then I feel like the deck sometimes weaker. I mean, then you're not playing Cloaked Huntress, then you're streamlining the build, and then you might as well just be an aggressive hunter.
An aggressive hunter, like full aggro.
And then you're not, you're not going to capitalize on the control decks as much because I don't know. But like I wish I could pull up my stats and show. But maybe I'll tweet them out later. Because I made most of my push to Legend this season with a deck that had kind of Grandmasters, a deck that I played the most over the past week. I went from rank 5 to rank 1, 3 stars or something like that with that deck exclusively almost. And my last few games with Druid, and kind of Grandmother just didn't perform that well with this deck. Less with a couple changes here and there, of course. I think I tried one Houndmaster sometimes. I tried all the 1-drops in there at some point or another. Abusive Sergeant, Argent Squire, and it didn't perform well over the course of like 80 games.
What if you went, say, like double abusive, 1 kill command instead of 2? Like, because that can allow you to like slot in because finding room for the abusives in your current list is probably the issue. Like, it's one of the big problems.
I think if I cut anything from this list, it'd be the whole secrets package.
Yeah. Okay. I think the secrets would be the first thing. Yeah.
Sure.
I'd cut Cloaked Huntress. I'd cut all the traps. I'd add like abusives, 1 Argent Squire, and maybe Argent Horse Rider.
Argent Horse Rider in it. I think Horse Rider with Barnes and Squires are pretty good. Like in the same list, they work pretty well together.
Oh, actually, I've never actually hit the Barnes with the Horse Rider before.
It's pretty good. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah, it works really well, as far as I've seen at least.
Okay, interesting. It's basically not as good as what everybody was saying, I guess, on first review.
Okay.
And to be honest, I've only played a little bit with Grandmother. I haven't gotten a chance to sit down and play a ton with it. But I just assumed it was good, though. Every time I've played against it, it's been quite annoying. But I tend to play more control-oriented games, so that's obviously a lot better against that. Okay, cool. Well, why don't we wrap up, guys? It's almost been 2 hours. 2 hours of a lot of fun and great Hearthstone talk. TJ, man, pleasure having you on. We gotta have you on again soon, man. Or not soon, but at some point for sure. It could be soon. It could be later. It'd be fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah. I talk about Hearthstone for a living, and so I love it. Of course, I love it, and love getting to talk about it without Blizzard's eyes right behind me.
Exactly. No, you can totally tell.
Yogg, Saron. That's just
watch what you say, boy.
I mean, they're not as restrictive as they used to be. I think like the casters have more freedom. I think like the article Frodan wrote a while back. And it's interesting because Frodan.
What did they used to tell you? Did they used to like sit there? Give
no. Okay. Wait up. No, wait up, ChanManV. I never said to anyone, don't say anything negative about any player ever. Don't criticize plays. They might have mentioned that they want positivity. That's one of the things that's like a trademark of the way they want casters to interact. And Frodan was kind of telling people that at the time because Blizzard was asking that, as far as I'm aware. So the article they wrote, I hope, kind of made Blizzard reconsider the stance of like pure positivity all the time. That's one of the big things.
I hope so. I mean, his articles were great, so I would hope they were taking that into account. But I didn't realize they were giving you that much. I mean, obviously, I can understand, being very cautious around them, but I didn't know if they gave you guys instructions or not. But it sounds like they did. Just being positive. That's not bad instructions.
They give you general feedback, but it's for how they want. It's how they want their broadcast to be presented. I've never been explicitly told not to say a word. I've never been explicitly told not to call out a misplay. I've never been explicitly told like you can't do that. But they will give you feedback and say, hey, the way you pointed out that guy's misplay was a little harsh. Like maybe next time, like they don't want you calling people bad players. They want you to like explain the situation in a light that most people will understand as, wow, this player is good most of the time, but he made an error in judgment. So
a little slip up,
they never explicitly tell you not to do anything, but they do give feedback, and they do have an idea of how they want their broadcast to be presented, and they'll give you feedback based off of that. But it's never, don't say that, TJ.
Yeah,
well, don't say that word. It's not as bad. Again, like I feel like it was a huge bandwagon for a while. People were like, yeah, you know, Blizzard just wants to silence the casters, you know, and it just wasn't that.
Yeah. Good. I mean, that's good to hear for sure. But TJ, so why don't we do some shout outs? TJ, where can people find you?
Twitter mostly. I don't have a Facebook page yet, but on Twitter at AzumoQD. I only tweet two things. I only tweet when I'm going live at an event and memes. So if you like watching, I also tweet pictures of my dogs and my wife. But those are the only three things. So if you like any of those three things, then you can follow me. Big shout out to you guys for inviting me on. It was really fun. Really fun.
Awesome. Noxious, where can people find you?
YouTube, Noxious Jelly Chef. That's pretty much it. Shout out to Complexity for the support and for getting, like, I really like the fact that Sottle's casting now. Crane's doing pretty good competitively. Super JJ, a little bit exhausted, but you know, he'll get back in once he's ready to keep hardcoring it again. I just really like the way the team's growing. We had some rough times early on, but it's getting better.
Yeah, good stuff. And I'll round things up by giving a shout out to you guys for doing the show. It was a ton of fun today. And everybody else that tuned in and watched. Lots of friends watching today too. So thanks for doing that. The VODs will be up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/ChanManV, and probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It's usually around that time. So if you miss any of the show, you can find it there. All the iTunes lists